Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for sticking in for the last two sessions of the day before the receptions and dinner fun this evening. So, go for purpose. That's our theme today, as Pat so enthusiastically introduced us to this morning. We've seen that theme reflected in several different contexts throughout the day-to-day. Gerst talked about developing teams for human spaceflight and the importance of the dynamics there. We've heard about the importance of purpose in executing business and mission plans. And we've heard about the importance of purpose in developing a unified goal to organize the capital markets around. We've also heard about it in terms of developing the ability to have a sustained human presence off Earth. In this session, we wanted to explore the term purpose in a different context. That is the idea of a social purpose of business, or how the space business represents a commitment to improving life here on Earth. So we know that companies have a revenue purpose, an economic objective to what they're doing, but a trend that we see out in industry, multiple different parts of our industry, is that there's a additional aspect to that business that is doing good, contributing to solving challenges, having a societal benefit purpose to what you're doing. The idea that doing good is good for business. So this morning, Pat told us that it was okay to talk about ourselves. So if you'll indulge me for a minute or two here, I do just want to do that. So as Wayne said, I'm with the Secure World Foundation. The Secure World Foundation is a purpose-driven organization. We are a nonprofit operating foundation focused on promoting cooperative solutions for space sustainability. So what is space sustainability? Space sustainability is the ability for us as a society, as an industry, as a community to continue to operate in and benefit from Earth's orbit and the applications that it provides us. So we work with partners, with industry, with government, with academia around the world to look at challenges that affect the stability of the orbital environment, affect the stability of the policy environment that allows us to benefit from space applications, and helps develop cooperative solutions to those challenges that we see. So sustainability is kind of core to what I do in the day-to-day, and it's core to how we approach our engagements with various stakeholder communities. So with this conversation, it's definitely a conversation now with the two of us, no longer a panel. We'd like to explore how, in the context of space-related facilities design, social benefit, social good has been integrated into business objectives. And we're going to focus on some of the sustainability initiatives at Rich's firm, BRPH. Just as we get into that conversation, I do want to note that sustainability is, of course, only one way in which a business can have a social benefit purpose. So as we get into the conversation, I do want to ask the audience to think about a couple of things. And hopefully we can return to these questions in question and answer and discussion at the end of our panel here. So the first question, just I'd like to ask you all to just reflect on your own activities, your own business. Do you have a social impact or a mission impact-driven purpose in addition to your economic or revenue objectives if you're an industry? And how is that expressed in your day-to-day activities? Broadly, the conference here, the second thing I'd like us all to think about during this conversation, ISPCS focuses on a dynamic and growing commercial space industry and a commercial launch and exploration industry. To what degree are sustainability objectives and sustainability goals important to maintaining that business environment that is conducive to growth and further development? So with those thoughts in mind, I want to introduce Rich Pruss here. Rich is the Vice President and Director of Aerospace and Government Programs at BRPH, which is a facilities and design engineering firm focused on the aerospace market and a number of other markets as well, I believe. So he's responsible for business strategy, execution, and growth in the aerospace sector of that business. And with that, Rich, I'll turn it on over to you.
All right, thank you, Ian, and thank you, Pat, for allowing me to be part of this conversation now and no longer a panel. But when we were brainstorming what we were going to be talking about, the original discussion was with BRPH being a facilities architecture and engineering firm. We do a lot of work on the ground. We help support aerospace businesses, help support launchers like Blue Origin, ULA, and the like, basically get into space. So we don't go into space ourselves. We're on the ground side supporting that endeavor. So if we can bring up the slides, we'll go through this. So, so the panel discussion we started talking about a couple months ago, and it was, how is sustainability impacting what we do as a business, what people are doing on Earth, for the greater good in general of improving the world and making it a better place than where it was when we got here. So to do that and kind of what BRPH does as a full service A&E firm, we have our roots in the aerospace industry. We started in the 60s, down in Cape Canaveral, supporting NASA, supporting the U.S. government with the Apollo program, and then moving into the other program, Shuttle, as well as a lot of the other rocket companies. So through that time frame, we've leveraged that capability and technology to expand. We're now a nationally recognized architecture, engineering, construction firm. And we've taken our expertise from the aerospace market and leveraged it into a couple other markets, commercial, education, entertainment, manufacturing, and of course the government side. And what we do is we really pride ourselves in working with our clients, working with them as really a staff extension. We want our folks, our engineers, architects, planners to really integrate in with our clients' teams and really leverage our expertise and capability to really advise our clients and make sure that they're making the smart decisions, they're making what needs to be done to support their business case. And one thing we're really seeing is kind of a renewed focus on sustainability. And for BRPH, sustainability is something that's really at our core. We were a very early adopter of the US GBC LEED program. We've leveraged that. We have a green committee that actually meets quarterly and reports to our board of directors and provides initiatives on how as a firm we can be a more sustainable partner, not just with our clients, but actually as a firm ourselves. We have a corporate sustainability policy that really outlines what our goals are for sustainability and with BRPH, how that entails with our community. And we have a total of 59 LEED accredited professionals, which is a pretty good number considering we're a firm of just over 300 people. So sustainability on our projects is something we're always bringing in. And to date, we have 27 LEED certified projects. Since we've changed format a little bit, I've added a couple of slides to just kind of show what some of those sustainable factors can be and how they actually can help a business case. But in those 27 projects, we've gone from the highest level, LEED Platinum, Net Zero Child Development Center for the U.S. Navy in Hawaii, to manufacturing facilities for aerospace clients. So starting off really with our headquarters building is a LEED certified building that we designed. And the things to point out is, we designed it as that so we can save on our overall O&M costs. So with our LEED certification and the practices we ingrained inside our facility, we actually have a 16% energy cost savings, which is substantial over the long term of the facility. Recently completed one in the National Museum for the United States Air Force. Again, almost 40% energy cost savings. This is one where the goal was LEED Silver. We actually were able to get to LEED Gold with a very minimal amount of extra investment that the government supported. So that idea of taking that challenge of providing the best value to our clients was something we really did on this project. And then with what we've done for the Boeing company on the airplane side, on the aerospace side, we've designed a 1.3 million square foot facility that was LEED Gold certified, and it resulted in 17% energy cost savings. It had solar panels on the roof. We collected condensate water to use for wastewater to help reduce water usage. So those are some of the things that we bring to our clients that we really utilize to find little ways to help save money in the long term. And a couple other ones, I'm not going to go through all of them, but since the slides will be available, everyone can kind of take a look at those later on. And what, this focus on sustainability is something we're just seeing that's really emerging over the last several years. The idea of utilizing processes and acting in a more environmental friendly way is something that really isn't new to the industry, but it's definitely different from where we came from. So if everyone remembers in the 1950s and 60s, the focus was not on environmentally friendly processes. It was really on how can we get to space? We have to beat the Russians. We got to get to the moon. And environmental issues weren't really an issue, something on people's minds. As a result, now we're dealing with that every time we do projects out at the Space Center where you have toxic plumes, you've got lead-based paint, asbestos. So regardless of what you're doing, if you're renovating a facility or building new, you've got to deal with those type of issues. And it's something that is kind of a change in focus over the generations. With the new generation of companies coming in, with SpaceX and Blue Origin, I mean, we heard Blue Origin talking about how they're going to, reusing rockets and cutting down on waste of first stages going just into the ocean and never being used again. So from a core business principle, you've got a lot of new aerospace firms leveraging that, as well as some of the established firms moving to a more sustainable practice. And there's a couple reasons for that. So it's not just the return on investment. Obviously, as companies, that's a big focus. You want to be able to cut down on cost. And one way to do that is obviously cutting down your overhead with your recurring O&M cost. But there really is a difference in mindset. There's a true caring of the environment and sustainable practices. It's not just, hey, we're going to check the box for sustainability. It's really, we're going to go do something to make a difference. And it's not just given it, the ability to market it that we have a LEED certified facility. It's people who actually care about that. And it's affecting all the stakeholders. So the graphic we have on is really what we've called the virtuous cycle, where you're going from your investors, partners, employees, and customers, and everyone's a stakeholder. You're shifting from just a single bottom line to really a triple bottom line approach of people, planet, and profit, so that they're all intertwined together and they're all factoring into how companies are working. So from the investor standpoint, they're obviously looking for a return on investment. They want to get there as quick as possible. So one way to do that is with sustainability. It helps drive lower overhead costs, the O&M, the single usage from construction to operation. So that's one area where the investors are looking to it. And they're also looking to be part of something more than just the ROI. In some cases, you have investors looking to really be part of something, being part of a company that's got a core value and a common goal, and they want to be part of that. So they're leveraging that side of it when they're looking at where they want to invest. The partners, obviously, like our firm with our clients, we like to feel like we're partners with them, is we share a common goal. We want to make sure that their goals are achieved, which is our goal. And sustainable practices, as I mentioned, are coming in more into focus, and having a partner that can help them get there is critical. From the employee standpoint, we've got a generation now that's looking to work for organizations that share their core belief. They don't just care about the paycheck, they care about what they're doing. And there's more value for the employees when they feel that a company is doing that, and that's why they'll stay with them and keep them and allow the company to perform better with top talent. And then finally, from the customer standpoint, they're the ones that are buying everything. So you got to make sure you're listening to their needs and wants. And in several cases, they're looking for products that deliver what they want. And sustainability now is part of that. People are looking for the firms are buying from to be sustainable. If you're thinking about car companies now, people are buying electric vehicles because they want to reduce the carbon footprint. So together, it's kind of this virtuous cycle where they're all playing into each other. And you can't ignore them, and it's the way that the aerospace industry is really going when you're looking at where we've come with just the rocket companies alone, and then not just that, but on the component side when they're building factories and stuff that are more environmentally friendly, LEED certification, as well as a reduction of resources. So, with that, we were going to hand over to Andrew, but that's kind of the talk I had. So. Turn back over to Ian.
All right. Well, thank you for that, Rich. I've got a few prepared questions. It looks like we've got about 5.5 minutes left here, so get those Q&A thoughts going there and send them into Wayne over there on the system. So where do I want to start here? You kind of hit some of the themes that I wanted to pull out, but I think we can go a little deeper into a couple of things. So in one of your initial slides there, you mentioned that BRPH was an early adopter of LEED processes and LEED certification, and it seemed like it seemed like a significantly high percentage of your professional staff are trained and able to provide those services. How do you continue to flow down that approach and that value of providing LEED services as you bring in new staff, as people transition to different roles in the company? How do you ensure that value is integrated across the firm?
Right. So BRPH is a very community-oriented firm, and what we do when we're bringing in new employees, we have our orientation cycle, and we introduce our green committee. We introduce this as an early on practice where the new employees can see what we're doing as a firm, and if they share that common focus, they can join in with the committee and be part of it. And we're always encouraging more professionals to get LEED certified. So we'll pay for training, we'll pay for the testing itself. So we'll make sure that they're being able to achieve their own personal goals if they want to do it. And with our green committee, we actually let them provide initiatives to our board of directors, who will then take them into consideration and pass them along. And we've done that recently with what we have for electric vehicle parking near the building, as well as providing, instead of just bottled water, we have water coolers that allow people to use their own personal bottles instead of using just tap water. So.
And do you find that those sorts of initiatives and activities to help you attract talent in, or is it something that more is on the retention side?
It's kind of the retention side. I mean, from our side as a design firm, with architects that have that desire to provide sustainable designs, they'll obviously see what we've done in the past, our LEED certified projects, and want to be part of that. But it's really a way to keep them engaged. That was kind of feedback was, hey, we want to do more to be sustainable. What can we do? And that's what drove our sustainable practices, and it drove kind of our green committee.
All right. So I'm going to switch up a little bit. So the LEED process, right, is a very well-defined, use the word standardized process. It's everybody recognizes what that means. And if you might talk a little bit about the trade-offs involved in when you're designing a new facility or updating a facility, the trade-offs involved in pursuing LEED certification or integrating sustainability measures without necessarily pursuing the certification.
So for those that aren't familiar with the LEED certification process, it's a very well-documented process that you have to apply for with the USGBC. You have to go through several different checkpoints, have a LEED administrator. So it is a costly endeavor. For government projects, they're all mandated to start with at least a LEED certified or LEED silver level, but from a commercial standpoint, there's always that cost justification of, do you actually go for a LEED certification or you just integrate sustainable practices? So what we'll do is, regardless of if the project needs to meet LEED certification, we'll actually introduce our sustainable processes as part of it. So you're looking at using LED light fixtures, which have a slightly higher initial cost, but in the long term, it saves a lot of energy. Low flow fixtures. One unique approach was we captured condensate drains from an air conditioning system from a manufacturing facility, which generated a lot of water, and it allowed us to capture it and reuse it for the waste system. So, we try to bring that idea of here's best practices, really not so much they're just sustainable, but it's just from an advising standpoint, we bring them up so that they're getting their best bang for the buck from design and initial investment costs. And if they want to go after LEED certification, we're there to help them do it, and we also, we can go through the checklist and specify specific items. But if they don't, we'll still provide them that guidance and give them the option to make that decision to do it or not.
All right, so I'm going to spring a question on you that we did not prepare for in advance. So my apologies for that. So your firm is well involved in the efforts at KSC and elsewhere, in particular at KSC, to develop, revitalize the infrastructure and develop a multi-user commercial government partnership spaceport there. You just mentioned best practices for sustainability initiatives beyond LEED. Is there a formal process, an informal process, a way that those best practices are shared as the facilities are revitalized down there?
So from the internal firm standpoint, when we're doing projects, we bring together our architects, and they actually kind of have monthly or bi-monthly meetings where they'll sit down and have a lunch, and they'll just go over some new ideas for projects that they've seen. Since with a firm of our size, you've got multiple architects and engineers working on projects. So they all have different ideas, and you don't always get to share them at the same time. So they'll meet together, go over those ideas, and kind of track them so that as a group, we're all informed as the best practices out there, so that when we are talking to our clients, especially down at the Cape and KSC, we can leverage, hey, we did this here, here's the savings we saw, and that it kind of gives them the option to incorporate that and ask us, kind of do a little white paper study of how can you do it, what's the impact, what's the cost impact. So we'll provide that as kind of the early on upfront effort as an advisor, just to make sure they are utilizing their best knowledge for making decisions.
Thanks. A large amount of my work, my regular role is figuring out how to share best practice in certain areas. So I'm always interested to learn others' experience with that. So Wayne, how are we looking on the input there? We got anything?
Oh, yes, we have generated a plethora
Excellent.
of questions.
Thank you all.
Yes, we have. First one on the hit parade here that most people seem to be interested in is, what can we learn from Earth-based sustainability efforts and apply to humans in space?
Well, I think on that one, so just the idea of reuse and recycling, when you're in space, you've got a limited amount of resources, so there's only so much you can really do. It costs a lot of money to bring up new items, and if you can't reuse them, then you're just kind of wasting them. So, I think we've found ways to reuse material on Earth, and I think as we leverage that with 3D printing and the like up in space, we can probably develop that further. So I'm not really an expert on it, but that's just my view of it.
I would also think that we're learning a bit how you translate these initiatives into economically measurable results, right? So that as you think about developing an economy in space, you realize that sustainability efforts, reuse efforts, contribute to the sustainability of that economy. So maybe a general answer, but I think we can take some lessons there as well.
Okay, well, continuing on in the space vein, I know you guys may have this a little difficult, but listen to this question carefully. The use of lunar water ice has been proposed for obtaining hydrogen and oxygen for propellant. Just as fossil fuels on Earth, these are not sustainable supplies. Comments to avoid running out?
I'll take the first stab at this. So one of the projects that I'm involved in my portfolio at Secure World is a international working group looking at the legal and policy framework to enable the space resources industry. So the development of ISRU as a commercial service. And this question has come up in the context of those conversations. The tenor of that conversation right now is looking at how you balance scientific use versus commercial use, and how you need to have a prioritization system for doing that. I think we have to recognize, yes, that the resources, they are limited, but I think both the commercial industry and the scientific community recognizes that and is trying to figure out a way to address it. How's that for a non-answer to the question?
You want to take part of that?
No, I think I'll let that one stand.
Stump the band, okay. What are the areas that are low-hanging fruit that space companies should consider as they initiate sustainability programs?
So I think on that one, it depends on the geography. So at each geographic center, you got different advantages to different sort of sustainable practices. So obviously, in Florida, Arizona, and the southern states, solar panels on roofs is a great way to leverage what you have. You can get a pretty substantial return on investment pretty quick now with the advancements we've seen in solar panel manufacturing. The costs are going down. It's still a fairly high cost from an initial standpoint, but if you're going to be in a facility for 5, 10, 15 years, over the long haul, you're going to make up that cost. From a water usage idea, the idea we had to capture condensate was a huge idea. It was something that when we did it for the Boeing company, it was something we came up with, and it was about 40% of water savings for that facility. That doesn't work everywhere, but I mean, if you're doing a process where you have a large volume, you have a lot of HVAC equipment, it's something definitely to consider on that one.
I think we can also think about it from an on-orbit perspective as well. Two examples that I'd call out there, the space debris problem, and whether we can think about design solutions to satellites that reduce the long-term potential for those objects to remain in orbit on a long term, and whether those, as in space manufacturing, becomes a more robust sector, whether we can think about recycling spacecraft in orbit. And then, of course, the other example I'd bring out is increasingly designing things for on-orbit servicing so that the design life is extended, and again, the reuse and reusability of those assets becomes a more viable activity.
Good. So this question is directed to Richard, but I think either one of you can answer. Is doing good really good for business?
It's a little bit of a loaded question. I think now the idea that sustainability is becoming a forefront, I think you don't really have a choice. I think you have to be sustainable. You have to start incorporating sustainable practices in your business case. There is always a cost to it, but I think there's a bigger cost now than not being sustainable. I mean, just with social media now, anytime something happens, you're going to get out there and it's going to be public. So there's a different cost. It may not be a direct dollar cost, but there's a perception cost. And I think you see a lot of the top firms now moving sustainable with their facilities. Looking at Apple's new headquarters, they're looking to be very sustainable on that level. So it's something that I think you need to do, and doing good it's doing good. But I think it's just what we have to do anymore as the world is changing.
I don't think I have anything to add to that.
Okay. Has a customer ever come to you because of your LEED certification reputation?
I'd like to say yes, but I don't have a statistic on that, so I don't know for certain. I think our portfolio is very diverse. We've got a long range of projects from the most critical at platinum level, which is the hardest level to get, to the easier certified level. So, I mean, we have that expertise, and we offer it up to all of our clients as a trusted advisor. So if anyone wants to talk about their facilities, and come ahead and grab me after the presentation, or come send me an email, and I'd be happy to talk about it.
Next to the last question, can LEED, I assume the principles or standards for LEED be applied to space systems, and what incentives could it provide for compliance?
So I think it can, because the idea behind LEED is you're taking the sustainable practices at different levels, and really what LEED provides at the different certifications, it shows to basically the public what your commitment is to it. So I think from a satellite perspective, as Ian was saying, the idea of reusing satellites, to either limit orbital debris or find ways even better to reuse them. If it's an older, if you can do the on-orbit servicing and change their original core mission, there'd be a benefit. Is there really a way to incentivize that? I think it's going to come down to more of a business case. If you can find a way to reuse a satellite that's already in orbit, you're cutting down the launch costs. So it's a dollar value approach that if you could fix it and get another 5 years out of it, that's a lot of capital costs you can defer.
Well, we come to the very last question, which really isn't a question, but I'll let you have it as a discussion topic. The statement here is that electric cars just displace fossil fuel use to remote sites, so there are no savings in CO2. You want to comment on that?
It's true. I mean, that's where the idea of finding true sustainability from not just your product, but also from the manufacturing process. So it's really a full cycle. Is you can't just have an end product that is good for the environment. It's how you get there, and that's, I think, the challenge we see even with the solar panel manufacturer. They still take a lot of carbon to produce them, and so we need to find ways to make advancements in the scientific approach and engineering to make them better in the beginning, so that once you get them at the end, you're not just feeling good about, hey, I'm saving electricity, but you also didn't expend just as much carbon to produce them. Okay,
well, that exhausted the questions. Thank you, Ian and Richard, for your efforts on this panel. Let's give them a round of applause for their work here.